I'm Lauren Abbott, 34 years old, and I still remember the feel of that envelope. Thick, expensive paper tucked between a utility bill and a pizza coupon. I carried it upstairs like it might break in my hands. I thought it was my brother's wedding invitation. I'd waited months for it. Instead, it held a note in Andrew's handwriting. Just one sentence. No invitation, no details. Just sorry, Lauren. This is an adults-only event. I stared at it for so long, the words lost their meaning. Before I go on, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from, and if you've ever had to learn the hard way that family ties aren't always enough. Tap that subscribe button. I grew up in a small town just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. My brother Andrew and I were 4 years apart, but for most of our lives we were inseparable. I was the quiet kid with messy handwriting and a big imagination. He was my protector, my cheerleader, and when our parents split during my sophomore year, he became the only constant that didn't fall apart. Andrew drove home from college almost every weekend just to take me out for ice cream, or walk with me down the wooded trail behind our neighborhood and talk about anything but the shouting in the house. He was the one who taught me how to ride a bike and parallel park and fill out my first job application at the coffee shop on Main Street. He came to every play I was ever in, even the one where I forgot half my lines and nearly tripped on stage when I moved to Boston for a job in digital marketing. Andrew helped carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs and fixed my leaky faucet. Before he left, it was 2 of us against the world until Claire. He met Claire at the law firm where they both worked, high-powered and polished, the kind of woman who wore cream blouses that never wrinkled and heels on cobblestone sidewalks. She was smart, successful, and impossible to get close to when I first met her. She smiled politely, as if she was checking a box. And the moment I brought up anything from our childhood, she shifted the topic to their firm's latest case or the new art gallery in Beacon Hill. I brushed it off. At first told myself Andrew was just wrapped up in love in something new. But slowly I noticed the small changes our Sunday calls became every other week. Then, once a month, he stopped replying to texts right away, stopped asking about my work or how my garden was doing. Conversations became one-sided, filled with updates about Claire's charity brunches and their latest home renovation. But nothing about the brother I used to know. Still, I tried. I sent him concert tickets for his birthday ones. Used to beg me to get when we were kids. I offered to help with wedding planning when he called to share the news of his engagement. He thanked me, said it was already being handled by Claire's mom and the planner she hired, but I held on to hope. Maybe the wedding would bring us back together. Maybe he'd remember who we were before everything got so complicated. So I waited. Months passed, and the mailbox stayed empty until that Tuesday morning in early October when the envelope arrived, cream with gold lettering and his name in the corner. My heart jumped. I almost ran back upstairs to open it. I expected a proper invitation, something with RSVP instructions and meal options. Instead, all I got was that line. Sorry, Lauren. This is an adults-only event. I sat at my kitchen table staring at it, my hands cold. I was 34 years old with a mortgage and a management title, and I was being told I didn't count as an adult. No mention of another celebration, no phone call. Just a note. I dialed Andrew. Immediately it went to voicemail. Then I sent a text. No response. I tried again that night. Claire answered, said they were busy with the florist and that things were complicated. Family dynamics, venue size, all the polite ways of saying, "You're not welcome." I stayed up late that night scrolling through old pictures, Andrew teaching me how to skip stones, our matching sweatshirts from a trip to Yellowstone, the framed photo from my college graduation where he stood with his arm around me like nothing would ever pull us apart. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I showed up to work and couldn't focus. Jenna brought me a coffee and gently suggested I take some time off. Just a few days, she said. You've got plenty of vacation saved up? Maybe it's time, maybe it was? I stared at my screen for a long time, then opened a new tab and typed flights from Boston to anywhere, and that's when everything began to shift. The flight to Bangkok left just after sunrise. I sat by the window, head resting against the cool glass, watching the Massachusetts coastline disappear into mist. 20 hours stretched ahead of me, Boston to Tokyo, then Tokyo to Thailand. Somewhere over the Pacific, in that strange suspended darkness of overnight travel, I opened the journal I'd grabbed at the airport and wrote my name on the first page. Just that. One line. The rest would come later. The heat hit me like a wall when I stepped outside Suvarnabhumi Airport. The air was thick with humidity and diesel mixed with the sweet, sharp scent of grilled meat and flowers. The sun was already high. I followed the taxi line to a kiosk and gave the name of my hostel in Ari, a neighborhood I'd chosen mostly at random. It wasn't the part of the city tourists usually started with, but that felt right. The hostel was clean, quiet, and tucked behind a coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon and strong tea. My bunk had a privacy curtain and a little shelf where I set down my paperback and a photo I hadn't meant to bring Andrew and me at a fairground, both of us holding stuffed animals and laughing. I left it face down. I heard a voice above me while I was stowing my things. First time in Thailand, I looked up to see a woman about my age, freckles across her nose and hair twisted into a messy top knot. She was holding a plastic bag of mango slices and smiling like we already knew each other. "Is it that obvious?" She grinned. "You've got that new arrival look. I'm Audrey Seattle. Lauren. Boston." I hesitated. "Solo. Best way to do it," she said. "Couple of us are heading out for street food. You in?" My instinct was to say no. I'd just landed. I was tired. But the reason I was here had everything to do with breaking old patterns. "Yeah, I'll come." That first night was a blur of sound and color, tuk-tuks rattling past, music pouring from open doorways, the sizzle of woks at the food stalls. I sat on a red plastic stool and ate pad thai straight from a paper plate, struggling with the chopsticks, until Audrey passed me a fork. She taught me to say thank you in Thai, and I practiced it until the vendor laughed and gave me a second skewer for free. The next morning I set out alone. I took a paper map from the hostel's front desk and circled a few temples. The streets were a maze, and within an hour I was lost wandering in circles past the same gold-trimmed rooftops and rows of umbrellas shading stalls that all seemed to sell the same 4 things. I tried not to panic, but I could feel my chest tightening. Then my phone buzzed, a message from my mom. "Just picked up my mother-of-the-groom dress navy with sequins. Andrew says the flowers at the venue are gorgeous." I sat down hard on the edge of a fountain. My face was hot. My hands shook. It wasn't just the heat or the jet lag. It was the casual way she'd said it, like I'd be happy to hear. A woman from a flower stall nearby walked over and crouched beside me. She spoke little English, but she held out a cup of water and tucked a jasmine blossom behind my ear. "No cry," she said, tapping my shoulder gently. "Thailand, happy place." I nodded and tried to smile. Her kindness cracked something open in me. I bought one of her garlands, gave her double the price, and waved goodbye. That night I found a little restaurant down a side street. No menus in English, so I pointed to whatever the person at the next table was eating. It turned out to be green curry, spicy and fragrant, with something that might have been eggplant, but didn't look like any I'd seen at home. I ate slowly, savoring the flavors, letting them quiet the buzzing in my head. Another message came through. This one from Andrew. "Mom said she told you about the venue. Hope you're doing well. Miss you." I turned off my phone. I didn't respond. The next morning, I booked a bus ticket south. Bangkok was too much noise, too many thoughts. I needed somewhere quieter. The ride to Krabi took most of the day. Through the windows, the landscape changed. Flat city blocks gave way to rice paddies, rows of palm trees, small villages with red and gold temples. The bus stopped twice for meals. At each stop, I bought bottled water and sticky rice wrapped in banana leaves. Riley Beach looked like a postcard. Pale sand, jagged limestone cliffs that rose straight out of the turquoise water. My hostel was simple but perfect, wooden walkways, hammocks strung between trees, a view of the sea from the common room. On my second night, I heard laughter from a bonfire down the beach. Audrey was there along with a few others, Tyler, a quiet photographer from Portland, Maya, a kindergarten teacher from Vermont, and Luis, a chef from New Mexico. Boston Audrey called, waving me over. The others made room without question. Maya handed me a drink. "What brings you to Thailand?" I paused, then shrugged. Change of scenery. Tyler raised an eyebrow. That's usually code for something. They waited. My brother's getting married, I said, and I wasn't invited. No one said anything for a second. Then Tyler shook his head. That's rough. Luis nodded. Family hits harder than anyone else can. I told them the rest about Andrew, about Claire, about the note, about waiting and hoping, about being the only one left out. When I finished, Maya leaned forward. I haven't talked to my sister in 6 years. She thought my divorce was shameful, so she just stopped calling. Tyler added, my sister and I were close growing up, but when I dropped out of law school to do photography full-time, she said I was wasting my life, haven't spent a holiday together since. Luis stirred the fire with a stick. My dad missed my culinary school graduation to go golfing. I didn't speak to him for 3 years. Maya offered a small smile. Families are messy, but people change. So do relationships. Tyler's voice was softer. Sometimes they don't, and you learn to stop waiting. The fire popped, sending sparks into the night. I didn't know what to say, but sitting with those strangers, I didn't feel as alone. The next morning, Tyler invited me to join them for an island tour. Boats, snorkeling, quiet beaches only locals knew about. I said yes without thinking. We spent the day in the sun, drinking pineapple juice from plastic bags and diving into the sea. Later that night, I checked my email on the hostel Wi-Fi. A message from my boss team misses you. No rush. Your position will be here when you're ready. I stared at the screen for a long time, then clicked Extend Stay on my hostel booking. 2 more weeks. We made plans to go north together. Me, Audrey, Maya, Tyler, and Luis. Chiang Mai next. The mountains. Temples. Maybe elephants. Before bed, I deleted every social media app on my phone. No more wedding updates, no more half-familiar faces in suits or sequined dresses. In the quiet that followed, I opened my journal again and started writing not about Andrew or Claire, but about the woman I might become when I stopped waiting to be chosen. We left for Chiang Mai the next afternoon. The 5 of us piled into a minivan that smelled faintly of eucalyptus and air freshener. The road curved through hills that grew steeper with every mile, lined with rice fields, fruit stands, and tiny shrines built into the rock. I dozed most of the ride, waking to the sound of Maya humming along to music in her headphones, and Luis unwrapping hard candy he'd bought at a roadside market. Our guest house sat just inside the old city wall. Stone towers, weathered gates, narrow alleys lit by paper lanterns. The rooms were simple. 2 beds, mosquito nets, and fans that rattled gently when the power kicked on. I shared a room with Maya. She gave me the bed near the window without asking. The first morning we wandered through temples. Tyler carried his camera everywhere, pausing every few steps to frame a shot. Audrey bought a bag of lychee and passed it around while we waited for the light to change at intersections. I stayed quiet, content to follow. Later that afternoon, we signed up for a half-day volunteering shift at an elephant sanctuary outside the city. It wasn't one of the tourist spots. No rides, no shows, just a quiet stretch of forest where rescued elephants lived in small herds free to roam. We chopped vegetables for their meals, pumpkin watermelon bundles of sugarcane, and carried buckets of water down a dusty slope to refill their drinking troughs. The sanctuary director, a woman named Noi, showed us how to feed them by hand, palm open and steady. They remember everything she told us, watching an older elephant nudge her calf toward the shade. They don't forget kindness or cruelty. We watched the pair for a long time, the mother's massive body shielding the smaller one as they walked slowly toward a mud pit. I didn't say much, but the image stayed with me long after we left. That evening, Tyler handed me his camera. "Try it," he said, setting the strap around my neck. "Sometimes it helps to look outward for a while." I took a few photos of the firelight, catching Audrey's hair, of Maya scooping rice from a shared bowl of Luis, humming to himself while washing dishes in the outdoor sink. I didn't know if the pictures were any good, but holding the camera made my hands feel steadier. 2 days later, Maya found a flyer at the front desk for a meditation session led by an English-speaking monk at a temple on the hill. We went early. The temple grounds were quiet, the gold rooftops reflecting the morning sun. Inside, the monk sat cross-legged, robes folded neatly, his voice calm and even. He spoke about attachment, about how suffering often comes not from what happens, but from what we expect to happen. We cling to ideas, he said, to roles we believe others should play. When they don't, we feel hurt. But the pain isn't always in the event, it's in the gap between expectation and reality. I didn't ask a question, but I listened closely. Afterward, we walked back down the hill in silence, the city spread below us in soft light. I kept thinking about the note Andrew had sent, about the months I'd spent assuming our bond was stronger than anything, about how different things looked from this distance. That night I couldn't sleep. The fan in our room hummed overhead. I got up quietly and stepped out onto the balcony. The street below was empty, the lanterns swaying gently in the breeze. My phone buzzed, a message from my mom. "Wedding tomorrow. Claire's dress is stunning. Wish you were here." I stared at the screen thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I turned the phone over and set it face down. At 3 a.m, I had a panic attack. My chest tightened, my hands trembled, and I couldn't catch my breath. I slipped out of the room barefoot on the stone steps and sat down on the front porch of the guest house. A moment later, Tyler appeared. He had his camera bag slung over one shoulder and a wool cap pulled low over his forehead. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "Not really," I said. "I was going to the temple," he offered. "Sunrise photos. Want to come?" I nodded. We didn't speak much during the walk. The streets were still and dark, the sound of birds just beginning to build. The temple grounds glowed in the soft light. Monks moved quietly along the paths. Barefoot heads bowed. Tyler wandered off to take pictures. I found a stone bench near the edge of the platform and sat down looking out over the rooftops below. I didn't cry. I just breathed. At some point, Tyler returned and sat beside me. "Today's the day, isn't it?" I nodded. He waited. "I've been trying to figure out why it hurts so much," I said finally. "It's just a wedding, one day. But it feels like being erased." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "It's not about the wedding. It's about being left out of something that's supposed to be yours too. A shared memory. A new chapter you don't get to be in." I nodded again. Back at the guest house, Maya and Luis had made breakfast, boiled eggs toast, strong coffee. A note next to my plate read, "Today, no wallowing. Waterfall at noon. Pack a swimsuit." Maya grinned at me. "We're kidnapping you. You have no say." Before we left, I sat down with Tyler in the common area and opened my journal. I tore out a clean sheet and began writing. "Dear Andrew, by the time you read this, you're probably married. I hope it was a beautiful day. I really do. And I hope it's everything you dreamed it would be. But I need you to know what it felt like to be left out. What it felt like to realize that somewhere along the way, I stopped being part of your picture. This isn't about Claire. It's not about the venue. It's not even about the invitation. It's about us, about the silence, about how much it hurt to see our bond treated like a formality instead of a foundation. I'm in Thailand now, trying to breathe, trying to let go of the part of me that keeps hoping you'll look up and see I was there all along. Maybe one day we'll find our way back. I don't know, but I needed you to hear this. Love, Lauren. I folded the letter and slid it into the back of my journal. I didn't know if I'd ever send it, but writing it felt like closing a door I hadn't realized was still open. We hiked 2 hours through jungle to reach the waterfall. Cold water, smooth stones, a small wooden bridge that swayed when we crossed it. That afternoon I stood under the falls with my eyes closed, letting the noise drown out everything else. The day after the waterfall hike, we returned to Chiang Mai. The guest house felt familiar now, our names written on a chalkboard by the front desk, folded towels waiting on each bed. I unpacked slowly, sorting laundry, smoothing my journal pages. A quiet had settled in me since the letter. Not peace exactly, but space. I moved through it carefully. That evening we walked to the night bazaar. The market buzzed with life vendors calling out from under string lights, tables lined with woven baskets, lacquered bowls, and silk scarves. I bought mango sticky rice from a cart at the edge of the square and ate it while Tyler photographed lanterns drifting above the rooftops. Back at the guest house, I checked my phone, a missed call from my mother. I listened to the voicemail on the balcony, the night breeze cooling my skin. "Hi, sweetheart. I hope I'm not catching you too late." The wedding went beautifully, except Andrew kept looking around like he expected you to walk in. Even during the first dance, Claire noticed. He didn't say anything, but I think he regrets how it all happened. I stood there for a long time, phone still in my hand. Her voice faded into the buzz of a motorbike passing below. Later that night, my phone rang again. This time it was Andrew. I answered. "Lauren." His voice was slurred, the sound of music and clinking glasses in the background. "Is that you?" "It's me. I'm in Bali," he said almost too brightly. "We are. Honeymoon." I waited. "I needed to call you," he said. I missed you." "You're drunk, Andrew." "Maybe. Probably." He laughed quietly, then paused. "I made a mistake, Lauren, not having you there. It didn't feel right." In the background, I heard Claire's voice, sharp and tight. "Who are you talking to?" my sister Andrew replied. "I'm just telling her about the wedding. This is our honeymoon." "Hang up." "Just a minute," he said, then returned to the phone. "I'll call you when we get back, okay? We'll fix this. I promise. I love you, Lauren." The line went dead. I sat on the bed for a long time. The room was quiet except for the ceiling fan. I didn't move. The things I'd waited so long to hear had come, but not in the way I imagined. When Tyler returned from the market, he handed me a paper bag. Inside was a small bottle of Thai whiskey and 2 glasses. "Maya said you might need this," he said, setting it on the table. "She's probably right." He poured 2 small glasses and sat across from me. "My brother called," I said. "From his honeymoon. Drunk." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "Said he missed me. Said he made a mistake. And how do you feel about that, I don't know. 2 months ago, I would have done anything to hear those words. Now, I don't know if they mean anything." Tyler nodded slowly. "Words are easy," he said, "especially drunk ones." I took a sip. It was warm and sharp. I let it settle. "He had months to speak up," I said, "to stand up for me. And he didn't. Until now. And only because she wasn't standing next to him." We sat in silence, the fan ticking softly above us. "He said we'd fix it. But I don't think he knows what that would even look like." Tyler didn't answer. He didn't need to. The next morning, I got up early and walked to the corner cafe. The air was cool, the streets mostly empty. I ordered coffee and sat at a table by the window, watching the light shift on the pavement. When I returned, I found Maya sitting cross-legged on her bed, phone in hand. "How are you feeling?" "Tired. Better. Want to come with me to the morning market?" "They've got this tea with chrysanthemum and lime. It's supposed to be good for clearing your head." We spent the morning walking slowly through the stalls, picking out fruit and little bags of dried herbs. I bought a carved wooden spoon and a bar of handmade soap that smelled like lemongrass. That night we released lanterns into the sky. The festival had already started when we reached the temple grounds. People stood barefoot on the grass holding thin paper lanterns with candles at the base. When lit, they filled with warm air and floated upward, carrying wishes and prayers. Tyler handed me one. "Write something." I borrowed Maya's pen and wrote a word on the side of the lantern. I didn't show anyone, just folded it back and waited. When the moment came, we lit. The candles waited for the air to lift and released them together. Dozens of golden lights rose above the trees, drifting silently into the dark. We watched until the last one disappeared. On our final night in Chiang Mai, I booked a flight home. 3 weeks. It didn't feel like enough time, but I wasn't returning to the life I left. I was returning to something new. At the airport, we hugged goodbye, me, Maya, Audrey, Luis, and Tyler. We exchanged contact information and made quiet promises to meet again. Tyler walked me to my gate. "You gonna send the letter?" he asked. "I think so," I said. "Eventually." He nodded. "Keep the camera. I don't know how to use half the buttons. Doesn't matter. Just keep looking." I boarded my flight journal in my bag camera slung across my shoulder. As the plane rose above the clouds, I looked out the window, watching the curve of the earth catch the first light of morning. Back in Boston, everything felt quieter. The trees along my street had turned while I was gone, gold amber and that deep red that only lasts a week. I opened the windows to air out my apartment, then started unpacking. My suitcase still carried the scent of lemongrass oil and sea salt. I left most things where they were, but moved the furniture a little, just enough to make the space feel different. I set Tyler's camera on the coffee table and thumbed through the photos still on the memory card. Lanterns rising into the night sky. Luis laughing in front of a food cart. Maya walking barefoot through temple ruins. A picture of me at the elephant sanctuary, mid-laugh, sun catching in my hair. I printed that one at the corner pharmacy and framed it. At work, I returned to the office with a kind of focus I hadn't felt in years. My boss stopped by my desk that first morning. "Whatever Thailand gave you, bottle it. You've got a spark." I smiled and thanked her. I didn't explain. I dove into my projects, brought fresh ideas to a struggling campaign, and handed off smaller tasks instead of staying late to fix everything myself. For the first time, I let work stay at work. Evenings were quiet. I signed up for a local photography class and joined a hiking group that met twice a month. I found a small Thai grocery on the other side of the river and asked the woman behind the counter how to make green curry from scratch. She didn't speak much English, but she showed me what to buy and pantomimed the rest. 2 weeks after I got back, Andrew texted, "Back in town. Coffee soon." We met at a neutral cafe halfway between our neighborhoods. I arrived early, ordered chamomile tea, and chose a seat in the corner. The table wobbled slightly. I folded a napkin underneath the leg. Andrew walked in wearing the same coat he'd had for years. Hair still too neat like he'd just come from court. He smiled when he saw me hesitant. "You look good," he said, giving me a light hug. "Different. In a good way." "Thailand agreed with me," I said, sliding into my seat. He sat across from me and stirred his coffee without drinking it. "About the wedding," he started. "You don't need to explain. I do, though." He paused, then looked up. "I handled it wrong, Lauren. The way we left things, it wasn't right. I knew it even then." I let the silence stretch. "So why did you—" I asked, quietly. "Why didn't you speak up?" He exhaled slowly. "It got complicated. Claire's parents offered to pay for most of it, and they had all these expectations. The guest list was one of them. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was one day. But it did matter, I said. It was symbolic. It told me exactly where I stood." He nodded. "I see that now. And I regretted it. That whole day I kept expecting you to walk in. I know I said, 'Mom told me.'" "I didn't know how to fix it," he said. "This isn't just about the wedding," I replied. "It's about everything that's happened the last few years, about how easy it was for you to let the distance grow." He didn't argue. "Claire," he hesitated. "She gets uncomfortable with how close we used to be. She never had that with her siblings. Sometimes it makes her feel, I don't know, left out." "That's understandable," I said, "but it's not a reason to erase me. I wasn't trying to erase you. You didn't have to try, it just happened, because you didn't stop it." We sat in silence for a while. "I'm not asking to be your priority," I said eventually, "but I do need to be seen, not just tolerated when convenient, not added back in when it's easy." He nodded again, slower this time. "I hear you, and I want to do better." I sipped the last of my tea, now lukewarm. "I miss my sister," he said. "I miss my brother, too," I said, "the one who knew how to show up." We talked for nearly 2 hours. No grand speeches, just slow, careful words. We agreed to start with small things. A weekly call, maybe lunch every other Friday. I told him I'd come to dinner if Claire was comfortable. He offered but didn't push. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. He did call, sometimes just for 5 minutes, sometimes longer. He sent photos from hikes, pictures of their dog, even a video of Claire making a pie with his help badly. When I visited their apartment, Claire was cool but polite. She complimented my earrings, asked if I wanted wine. We avoided deep topics, but Andrew made sure I was included in conversation, and he walked me out afterward. "Thanks for coming," he said, hands in his pockets. It meant a lot. Thanksgiving was the first real test. The table at Mom's house was set for 10. Andrew and Claire arrived late but brought dessert. Claire stayed mostly quiet but didn't leave the room. I brought homemade curry puffs that everyone tried politely. No one mentioned the wedding. After dinner, while the others settled in front of the TV, Andrew found me on the porch. "Thanks for being here," he said. I almost wasn't. Tyler invited me to Peru for the holiday. Tyler from Thailand. I nodded, pulling out my phone to show him photos. Machu Picchu, street markets, a dog sleeping in the sun. You've stayed in touch. All of us have. We're planning a reunion trip to Japan next spring. That's incredible, he said. You've built something. Well, I wasn't paying attention. I had to, I said. I couldn't wait for things to fix themselves. He nodded slowly. I'm grateful you're giving me the chance to catch up. That night back in my apartment, I hung a new calendar on the wall. I penciled in the photography workshop for Saturday, a solo hiking trip in Maine. The Japan dates tentative but hopeful. On my desk sat the framed photo from the sanctuary, me laughing, fully present. My phone buzzed. Andrew had liked my latest post, a self-portrait on a cliffside trail wind in my hair camera in hand. A small gesture, but enough. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I got an invitation from Andrew. Not from Claire, just him. A Sunday dinner, just the three of us. Casual, he said. Nothing fancy. He offered to cook, which made me smile. He'd burned grilled cheese the last time I let him near a stove. I almost said no. But I thought of the porch conversation, the small things he'd been doing, the effort. I said yes. When I arrived, Claire opened the door. She wore a soft sweater and bare feet. Her expression was polite, but not warm. Hi, Lauren, she said. Come on in. The apartment was quiet. Candles flickered on the sideboard, and something simmered on the stove. Andrew stepped out of the kitchen with an apron and a slightly anxious look. Hey, you made it. He gave me a quick hug, then held out a spoon. Try this and tell me if it needs more salt. I tasted the sauce. It's good. Dinner was pasta with roasted vegetables and a spinach salad. The conversation stayed safe. Work, weather, holiday, travel. Claire asked about my photography class, and I answered without trying to impress. After dessert, store-bought pie, Andrew walked me to the door. Thanks for coming, he said. I know it's still a little tentative. It's a start. We stood quietly for a moment. I didn't ask how Claire felt. I already knew. That week, Andrew texted me a photo of the cookbook he'd used and asked if I had any suggestions for next time. I sent him one with a sticky note from Maya still tucked inside. Mid-December, I hosted a small dinner at my place, just a few friends and a pot of green curry that nearly overflowed the stove. Jenna brought wine. Audrey called from Seattle to say she missed the crew and wished she could join. Later that night, I sat on the couch, dishes stacked in the sink, music low. My calendar lay open on the coffee table, workshop dates, hiking weekends, the spring trip to Japan. A text came through from Andrew. Just thinking about you. Hope you had a good night. The old Lauren might have replied right away. I waited until morning, then wrote back, thanks. I did. Hope you're doing well too. Christmas was quiet. I spent Christmas Eve at my mom's house. Claire and Andrew came for a late brunch on Christmas Day. There were still edges. Claire's clipped comments, the way she folded her arms during my stories. But Andrew noticed now. He redirected when she interrupted, checked in with me after. He was trying. That mattered. On New Year's Eve, I joined my hiking group for a day trip to the Berkshires. We climbed a snowy ridge and watched the last sunset of the year from a granite outcrop. At the top, I handed my phone to a woman I just met. Would you mind? She snapped the photo. Me standing at the edge, arms open, wind in my hair. I posted it later with no caption, just the image. Within an hour, Andrew had liked it. Claire hadn't. In January, I joined a new cooking class at a small studio in Somerville. 12 people, one instructor, and a chalkboard wall with everyone's names written in colored marker. Each week we tackled a different cuisine. The instructor, a woman named Elise, kept a playlist of soft jazz and brought tea in mismatched mugs. One evening while we waited for dough to rise, she asked if I'd ever thought about teaching a workshop myself. You have a calm presence, she said. People would follow your lead. I smiled and shook my head. Maybe someday. But the idea stayed with me. That weekend I opened my laptop and started outlining a class. Photography for beginners. Something small, something local. I reserved a room at the community center and sent out a message to my hiking group. 3 people signed up, then 5, then 10. Andrew called while I was setting up the registration form. Claire's birthday dinner is next week. She wants to keep it small. Just us, her parents, and a couple close friends. I waited. "She didn't put your name on the list," he said quietly. I asked. "She said she wanted one evening where things weren't complicated." I kept my voice steady. "I understand." "I don't," he said. "Not anymore." There was a long pause. "I can skip it," he said. "Tell her I'm not feeling well. Come to your place instead." "No," I said. "That's not what I want." "What do you want?" "I want you to show up when it matters, not to choose sides, to build something that includes me without always checking for permission." He didn't reply right away. "I hear you," he said at last. "I do." That weekend I went for a walk along the river. The sky was overcast, and the sidewalks were slick with snowmelt. I brought Tyler's camera and took pictures of the branches bending under the weight of ice. When I got home, I printed one and clipped it to the wall near my desk. Bare trees, pale light, stillness. February came with a storm that knocked out power for a day. I made soup on the gas stove and read by flashlight. Andrew called to check in. "You good?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. "Got everything I need. You always were better at that than me," he said. "At finding your footing." We didn't talk long, but something in his voice sounded different, less certain, more honest. March brought an early thaw and the first signs of spring. I opened the windows, bought new soil for the houseplants, washed the guest linens. The reunion trip to Japan was 6 weeks away. I had a passport, a backpack, a journal with only a few pages left. I didn't know yet what kind of brother Andrew would become, or what kind of woman Claire would let him be. But I knew who I was now, what I needed, what I would no longer wait for. And that finally was enough to begin again. In early April, Andrew called to say he'd signed up for my beginner photography workshop. I didn't believe him at first. He laughed when I paused too long. "I'm serious," he said. "Claire thinks I need a hobby that doesn't involve arguing." The class met in a community center on a quiet side street. A dozen folding chairs, a screen borrowed from the library, and a table filled with snacks. Andrew showed up 5 minutes early wearing sneakers and a puzzled look. "So, where's the Zoom button?" I smiled. "We'll start with Aperture." The group was mixed, 2 retired teachers, a college student, a father and daughter. Andrew sat near the back, asked questions when he was confused, and didn't check his phone once. After the second session, he offered to help carry supplies back to my car. "I forgot how much I like learning something from you," he said, holding the trunk open. "Wasn't sure you remembered how to follow instructions," I said, and we both laughed. That weekend, I got coffee with Jenna. We sat by the window of our usual spot, people watching while the barista filled orders behind us. "You seem lighter," she said, stirring cinnamon into her latte, "like something finally let go." I thought of the photo on my wall, the one of the icy branches, of standing still, not stuck. "I think I just stopped waiting," I said. 2 days later, I received a call from my mother. "Claire's parents are having an anniversary dinner," she said. "It's going to be formal, catered. You're invited." There was a pause. They wanted to keep it small, but Andrew told them he wouldn't go if you weren't welcome. I pressed the phone to my ear, not speaking yet. "He said it wasn't negotiable," she added. "Said you weren't optional anymore." I thanked her, hung up, and sat down on the edge of my bed. I didn't feel triumphant, just quiet. The dinner was held at a private venue near the coast. High ceilings, strings of soft lights, waiters in pressed black shirts. Claire's parents greeted me with stiff smiles. Claire herself offered a handshake. Andrew pulled out my chair. "You look great," he said simply. Throughout the meal, he stayed present, asked about my next workshop, told his in-laws how much he'd learned in class. Claire said little, but she didn't interrupt. She didn't walk away. During dessert, her father made a toast. Andrew raised his glass, then leaned over slightly and whispered, "Thank you for coming." I nodded. When we left, the night air was cool and clear. Andrew walked me to my car. "Was it too much?" he asked. "No," I said. "It was exactly what it needed to be." In late April, I led a photo walk through a local park. 10 people showed up, including Andrew. Tyler sent a message that morning from Hokkaido, pictures of cherry blossoms, mountains, a narrow alleyway lined with lanterns. 3 weeks until Japan. One afternoon, I stopped by Andrew's apartment to drop off a memory card he'd left behind. Claire answered the door. She was barefoot, holding a laundry basket. "Come in," she said. The apartment was quiet. She set the basket down and motioned to the kitchen. "There's tea if you want." I shook my head but stepped inside. The table had a notebook and a pen on it, Andrew's camera notes. His handwriting was messy as ever. Claire leaned against the counter. "You and Andrew are close again," she said. "We're rebuilding," I said. "It takes time." She nodded. "I didn't grow up with that kind of closeness," she said. "I didn't understand it. Still don't always." We stood there in a silence that wasn't tense, just unfinished. "I know I've made it hard for you," she added. I didn't answer, just looked at her. "I'm not asking for anything," she said. "But I am trying." I gave a small nod. That night Andrew called. "She's still learning how to be okay with sharing," he said. "But I think she's beginning to understand it doesn't mean losing anything." In early May, we held the final session of the workshop. Andrew printed one of his photos, a side street lit by morning sun, and gave it to me in a plain frame. "Still crooked," he said, "but it's the first one I took that I actually like." I hung it next to the one of me at the sanctuary. 2 different places, 2 different kinds of stillness. The day before my flight to Japan, Andrew met me for breakfast. "You're going to be off the grid for a while," he said. "I need that," I said. He passed me a small envelope. "Open it later." I slipped it into my journal. Outside the diner, we stood on the sidewalk. He hugged me longer than usual. "Safe travels," he said. "Send a photo when you land." I promised I would. As I packed that evening, I pulled the envelope from between the pages. Inside was a single note in Andrew's handwriting. "Thanks for helping me see the parts of myself I forgot. I'm still learning, but I see you now." I folded it back inside. My suitcase stood by the door. My passport was tucked in my coat pocket. The plane would take off in the morning. Japan unfolded slowly. Cherry blossoms lined narrow streets in Kyoto, their petals scattering like confetti across stone steps and temple courtyards. I met Audrey in Tokyo, where we spent our first afternoon walking through a market near Ueno Park, sipping tea and pointing at things we couldn't translate. Maya arrived a day later, tired but smiling, and Luis 2 days after that, wearing a new hat and carrying a notebook full of sketches. We slipped back into a rhythm almost immediately, early mornings, with strong coffee, late evenings, sharing stories from the past year. We wandered through shrines in silence, got lost in small towns, and laughed over street food that none of us could quite name. One afternoon, we took a train into the mountains. Tyler met us on the platform, camera over his shoulder, same quiet grin. We hugged for a long time. That night we stayed at a guest house built from dark wood and paper screens. We took off our shoes at the door and sat cross-legged around a low table warmed by a small hearth. Tyler passed me a small envelope after dinner. "Your brother sent this," he said. "Asked me to deliver it in person." Inside was a photograph, one I hadn't seen before. Me and Andrew, probably ages 9 and 13, sitting on a tree branch in our backyard. Both of us sunburned and barefoot, grinning. On the back, he'd written just one line I remember now. I held the photo for a long time, folded it carefully, slipped it into my journal. The next morning, I walked through a quiet grove before sunrise. The path curved around a bamboo fence and opened into a clearing where the trees bowed slightly in the wind. I stood there alone, the world still soft with morning light. I thought about what had changed and what hadn't. Andrew and I weren't who we were as children, but he'd taken steps I never thought he would. Small ones, honest ones. And while I didn't know how far we'd go from here, I knew I didn't need to wait anymore. I could meet him where he stood as long as he kept walking. I thought, too, of Claire, of her silence, her hesitation, her effort. It was enough for now. I returned to Boston with soil still clinging to my hiking boots and the scent of green tea in my suitcase. I brought back new images, temples in the rain, friends around firelight, strangers on subway cars with faces I'll never forget. But what stayed with me most was something quieter, a sense that I no longer needed to prove my worth, that the people who saw me didn't need reminders, and the ones who didn't, well, they were no longer at the center of my life. The photo Andrew sent hangs now in my kitchen. It's tucked beside a note from Audrey, a sketch from Luis, a postcard from Maya with handwriting that loops wildly across the back. They're pieces of something I built when I thought I'd been left behind. The truth is, I wasn't lost. I was just beginning. Thank you for listening to my story. If it brought something up for you, maybe a moment of quiet strength or a step toward your own new beginning, I hope you'll share it. And if you're still on the journey, I'm rooting for you. Take good care of yourself.